Eli Vance's hands shook as he pushed open the automatic doors of the city's central hospital. The neon lights of the ER flickered in the late-night haze, casting pale reflections across the wet street. Rain had started again, cold and relentless, soaking through his coat and running in rivulets down his worn shoes. He didn't notice. Nothing mattered except Mara, his 10-year-old daughter, who clung to his arm with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Her face was pale, lips quivering. "Daddy, it hurts," she whispered, her small hand clutching his sleeve. Eli swallowed hard, ignoring the ache in his chest that went deeper than any physical pain. He had been running on pure adrenaline for hours, juggling work, school, and the endless bills that piled up like concrete walls around him. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. Seeing Mara in agony and knowing he couldn't fix it alone. The ER was quiet for a place meant to save lives. Most of the staff were already resting, and the robotic assistants hummed softly, moving in silent, precise patterns. They were efficient, yes, but cold. Eli had learned early on not to trust machines with matters of the heart. Machines could diagnose, administer, and stabilize, but they couldn't soothe the trembling of a child or hold a father from breaking down when hope felt distant. He reached the triage desk, panting. "My daughter." She fell. She hit her head. His voice cracked, and he swallowed hard again. A young nurse, startled awake, snapped into action. "Sir, take her to bed 3. I'll call the doctor immediately." Eli helped Mara onto the gurney, gently brushing wet hair from her forehead. Her small body shivered, not just from the cold rain but from fear. Eli's heart ached seeing her like this. He was a single father, struggling every day to provide, to protect. And yet here, in the middle of the night, he felt helpless. He wanted to cry. He wanted to scream. Instead, he sat down in the corner of the ER, holding Mara's hand, feeling the weight of his exhaustion press down like an anchor. His body ached, his mind raced, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel the crushing loneliness of being a man alone in the world, responsible for a child he loved more than anything. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Time seemed to stretch and bend in the quiet of the ER. The hum of machines was steady, almost soothing in a strange way. Yet Eli couldn't shake the sense of emptiness around him. Other patients' families whispered softly to each other. Robotic nurses glided past. But no one stopped to see him, to acknowledge the silent breakdown happening in the corner. Then came Selena Hart. She moved with a kind of quiet grace that made it impossible not to notice her. Dressed simply, yet every motion spoke of power and confidence. She glided through the ER like a shadow. Her eyes, calm and steady, seemed to scan the room, taking in the chaos with perfect awareness. She stopped at Eli's corner, crouching slightly to meet his eyes. "I understand that pain," she whispered. The words startled him. He blinked, unsure if she was addressing him or merely speaking into the air. But her gaze was steady, and her tone was soft, almost comforting, as though she had been exactly where he was at some point in her life. "Excuse me?" Eli managed, his voice hoarse. "I said, I understand that pain," she repeated. "The one that comes when someone you love is hurting, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Eli's throat tightened. He wanted to dismiss her, to protect his pride. But something in her presence made it impossible. She didn't pity him, didn't judge him. There was only recognition, a quiet understanding of the kind of grief and helplessness that life sometimes demanded of people. Mara stirred in her sleep, and Eli looked down at her. Her small chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. The cut on her forehead was already cleaned and bandaged, and the robotic medbed monitored her vitals with calm precision. Still, Eli's fear lingered like a shadow he could not shake. "Do you know what this feels like?" he asked quietly. Celine nodded. "I do. Losing someone you love, facing moments when you are powerless. It changes you. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Eli wanted to argue, to tell her that his life was nothing compared to hers, that she had wealth and influence, and yet she chose to speak to a broken man in a hospital at midnight. But he found no words, only the raw ache of gratitude, mixed with despair. They sat together in silence. Celine didn't force conversation. She didn't try to fix things. She simply offered a presence, a steady warmth in a world of cold lights and beeping machines. Eli realized that perhaps that was what he needed most. Not advice, not solutions, not money. Just acknowledgement that the pain he carried was real. And he was not alone in carrying it. A sudden beep cut through the quiet. Mara's monitor flickered, indicating a slight drop in oxygen levels. Eli's body tensed, instincts kicking in, but before he could panic, Celine leaned closer. "She'll be fine," she said calmly. "The AI monitors are precise. But stay close. Your presence matters more than you think." Eli nodded, swallowing his panic. Her words were simple, but there was an authority in them that soothed him. Somehow, despite everything, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe humans still had power where machines could only watch. Hours passed. The ER grew busier, as night shift staff trickled in, taking over their rounds. Eli remained by Mara's side, occasionally dozing, occasionally watching her monitors, heart tight but slowly easing. Celine remained nearby, quietly observing, her presence a silent shield against the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. Finally, Mara stirred, opening her eyes. She blinked up at Eli, a weak smile on her lips. "Daddy, am I okay?" Eli's chest ached with relief. He brushed her hair back gently. "You're okay, kiddo. You're okay." Celine smiled faintly from a distance. She had no children of her own, yet the tenderness she witnessed here reminded her why she fought to make the world a place where moments like this could exist. Moments of human connection, human courage, human care. For Eli, the night was far from over. Bills, responsibilities, sleepless nights awaited him. But for the first time in a long time, he felt the tiniest spark of something stronger than despair. Resilience. Humans could endure. Humans could fight. And perhaps, in the presence of someone who understood, humans could even heal. The rain outside began to ease. Neon reflections danced across the wet streets as the city slept. Inside the ER, a single father held his daughter's hand, and a billionaire widow watched quietly, knowing that tonight, in the quiet of midnight, humanity raw, unpolished, and unstoppable had triumphed over fear. The night stretched on, the hospital buzzing quietly with the hum of machines and the occasional shuffle of nurses' shoes against the polished floors. Eli sat in the corner, exhaustion pressing on him like a heavy weight, but he could not leave Mara's side. Her small hand rested in his, fingers curling around his thumb. She had fallen asleep again, pale but stable, and for the first time in hours, Eli allowed himself a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. Celine's heart did not leave. She remained nearby, a calm presence in the corner of the room, watching quietly, without intruding. There was something about her that made Eli uncomfortable at first, her quiet confidence, the way she seemed to notice everything without needing to say a word. Yet, at the same time, there was an ease about her presence, a sense that she understood pain in a way few people ever could. Finally, unable to ignore the strange comfort of her presence, Eli spoke. His voice was low, careful, like a man trying not to wake a fragile bird. You said you understand that pain. What kind of pain?" Celine's eyes softened. She pulled a chair closer and sat, her posture straight but relaxed. "The kind of pain that changes you forever," she said quietly. "The kind that comes when someone you love is gone, and there's nothing you can do to bring them back." Eli frowned, unsure what to say. He had experienced loss. Yes, the death of his parents when he was young, the loneliness that followed, but nothing compared to the helpless fear he felt tonight, watching Mara in pain and realizing how small he felt against the forces of the world. Did that happen to you?" he asked, his curiosity mixed with a hesitant trust. Celine nodded. "Yes. My husband. My son. Gone in an accident. A corporate accident. Machines failed. People made mistakes. I couldn't stop it. She paused, her hands resting lightly on her knees. I spent years blaming myself, hating the world, and then I realized something. The only way to survive is to use what you have to protect those who are still here. Eli's chest tightened. He could see the truth in her words. Here was a woman with unimaginable wealth and power, yet she spoke not of vengeance or pride, but of survival and care. And in a strange way, he felt a connection, a bond between two people who had been touched by loss, and who now stood, unexpectedly, in the same quiet corner of a hospital at midnight. The room was silent for a moment, except for the soft hum of Mara's monitors. Eli glanced at her, relief flooding his chest. She was still breathing steadily, though pale. And for a moment, he allowed himself to feel the warmth of hope. Then, the emergency alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the ceiling as robotic nurses rushed to other rooms, responding to new alerts. Eli instinctively looked at Mara's monitor. Her oxygen levels were fine, her vitals steady, but something in the air shifted. The hospital's automated systems began to flicker, then pause. Screens went blank. Robotic assistants stopped mid-step. Some half-carrying patients, some frozen in place. "What's happening?" Eli asked, panic creeping into his voice. Celine's gaze sharpened. "The system. It's malfunctioning. Or worse, someone may have tampered with it." Eli's heart raced. Machines controlled everything in the hospital, the ventilators, the monitors, even the doors. If they failed, lives could be in danger. He wanted to panic, but Celine's calm presence grounded him. "Don't worry," she said quietly. "The AI has backups, but we may need to intervene manually. Humans can do what machines cannot. When they fail." Eli's brow furrowed. He wasn't a doctor, he wasn't trained for this, but he was a father, and in that moment, he realized that sometimes, survival required stepping beyond fear and doing whatever was necessary to protect the ones you loved. I'll do whatever it takes," he said firmly. Selene gave a small nod. "Good. You'll need courage, quick thinking, and calm hands. I'll guide you as much as I can." Together, they moved toward Mara's medbed. Eli followed Celine's instructions carefully, holding her gaze whenever doubt crept in. They worked quickly, checking monitors manually, ensuring that oxygen and other critical systems were stable. Eli's hands trembled at first. But slowly, he found rhythm in the chaos. Each small success, a system reset, a manual check, a reassuring beep filled him with confidence. "You're doing well," Celine said softly. "Most people would freeze. But not you. You're capable." Eli swallowed, embarrassed but grateful. "I'm just a dad," he said. "I have to do this." Celine shook her head gently. "You're more than that. You're human. And humans are unstoppable when they refuse to give up. Don't ever forget that." Hours passed. The hospital's AI systems struggled but gradually stabilized under their careful attention. Nurses and doctors, now fully awake, joined in, impressed by the father who refused to leave his daughter's side. Eli's heart swelled with pride and exhaustion. For the first time, he realized that human ingenuity, courage, resourcefulness, and love could rival even the most advanced machines. Once Mara's vitals returned to normal, Celine pulled Eli aside. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low but urgent. "The system failure. It's not an accident. Someone wants to discredit my initiatives, my work in medical technology." Eli blinked. "Someone? Who? Why?" Celine's eyes darkened. "Corporate rivals. They see my influence and resources as a threat. They want to prove that humans are obsolete, that machines can replace us entirely. But tonight, you showed them that humans, not machines, are the backbone of life." Eli's mind reeled. He had never thought of his fatherly instinct, his love for Mara, as part of some bigger fight. Yet Celine's words resonated. She wasn't offering him money, fame, or glory. She was offering him something far rarer. Recognition of his human strength, of the power inherent in those who refuse to give up when everything is against them. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked cautiously. "Because I want you to join me," she said simply. "Not as an employee, not as a figurehead, as a partner. Someone who understands what it means to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You have what most people lack: instinct, courage, and compassion." Eli felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Pride, fear, and disbelief warred in his chest. He was a single father, struggling to make ends meet. Not a corporate hero. Yet the thought of using his experience, his resilience, to protect others, to fight back against those who would exploit machines over humans, it stirred something deep inside him. He looked back at Mara, still resting, peaceful for the first time in hours. She was his world, and he would do anything to keep her safe. Perhaps, he thought, he could do the same for others. I'll think about it," he said finally, feeling both terrified and inspired. Celine smiled faintly. "Take your time. But remember, the night is darkest before dawn. And sometimes, it takes ordinary people to shine the brightest." The quiet returned to the ER, though the tension lingered like a shadow. Outside, rain pattered against the windows, and neon reflections shimmered across the wet streets. Inside, a single father and a billionaire widow sat side by side, connected by loss, understanding, and a shared determination. In that moment, Eli realized something profound. Human strength was not measured by wealth, technology, or influence. It was measured by courage, love, and the willingness to act when the world demanded it most. And tonight, in the quiet chaos of a failing hospital, that strength had been undeniable. As the hours passed and the first hints of dawn touched the city skyline, Eli felt a small spark of hope ignite. He was tired, yes, he was overwhelmed, but he was also capable, resilient, and unbroken. And for the first time in a long while, he felt the certainty that humans, flawed, emotional, determined humans, were not just survivors, they were champions. The first rays of dawn barely touched the city when the ER's artificial lights flickered, threatening another shutdown. Eli's heart raced as he watched the monitors struggle to stabilize. Despite the AI backup systems, something was off. Machines designed to keep patients alive were hesitating, glitching, even freezing. Celine's eyes narrowed. "It's worse than we thought. This isn't just a malfunction. Someone is testing the limits of the system, seeing how far it can fail." Eli's stomach sank. Machines controlled nearly everything in the hospital. Ventilators, medication dispensers, even life support. Without them, survival depended on human hands and minds, ordinary people capable of extraordinary things. Eli's mind raced. He wasn't a doctor, he wasn't a hacker, he was just a dad. But Mara's steady breathing reminded him that ordinary people sometimes had to do impossible things. He stood. "We have to act. Now." Celine nodded. "Yes, and we'll do it together." Eli moved quickly, gathering nurses and family members who had been waiting anxiously. The hospital staff were skilled, but they were trained to rely on AI. The sudden failure threw them off balance. Eli took charge, issuing clear instructions. "Check vitals manually. Every patient. Oxygen, heart rate, respiration. Write it down. Don't trust the machines. Trust your eyes, your hands, your brains." Some of the nurses hesitated, glancing at the frozen robotic assistants. Eli's voice grew firmer. "This is life or death. Humans can do what machines cannot. Focus. Work together. We are the solution." As the team worked, Celine activated her private emergency network, connecting manually to critical systems. She guided Eli through the processes, showing him which backups to activate and how to bypass corrupted programming. The duo moved quickly, Eli learning with astonishing speed. "See?" Celine said quietly, as he stabilized a medbed manually. "Humans adapt. Machines only follow instructions. You're thinking, creating solutions in real time. That's power." Eli's hands shook as he adjusted a makeshift ventilator for a patient whose AI assistant had stopped. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with exhaustion and rain from earlier. But as he worked, he felt a surge of confidence. Each patient he stabilized, each monitor he manually checked, was proof that humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, fighters, protectors. Hours passed in a blur of adrenaline. The team improvised constantly. They crafted temporary oxygen regulators from ordinary hospital supplies. They reconnected monitors with spare wires. They even communicated instructions across rooms using handwritten notes when intercoms failed. Every success reinforced Eli's realization. Ingenuity, courage, and determination could overcome even the most sophisticated failures. At one point, a nurse panicked. "I can't get the respirator working," she cried. Eli took a deep breath, placing his hands over hers. "Yes, you can. Breathe. Focus. It's just a machine. We know what it needs." Step by step, together, they restored function. The nurse exhaled in relief. Eli smiled faintly, feeling something deep in his chest. Pride, exhaustion, and a quiet joy. He was not only protecting Mara, he was saving lives, proving that humans were indispensable. Celine observed him with a mixture of awe and quiet admiration. Most people would panic, freeze, let the machines decide. But not you. You're not just reacting. You're thinking, creating solutions. Eli shook his head. "I'm just doing what I have to do." "No," she said softly. "You're showing something that money, technology, and power can never replace: human spirit." By mid-morning, the worst of the crisis had passed. Machines came back online gradually, systems recalibrated, and robotic assistants resumed their duties. But it was not the AI that had saved the day. It was a single father, a group of determined humans, and one woman who believed in their strength. The hospital staff, now fully awake and functioning, looked at Eli with respect and gratitude. The word of the father, who had led the ER through the chaos, spread quietly among them. It was rare for humans to prove themselves more capable than machines in a world built to rely on AI. Celine approached Eli, her expression serious but gentle. "You've done more than save lives tonight. You've reminded me why I fight. Why humans matter." Eli shook his head, exhausted but humbled. "I'm just a dad," he said quietly. Celine smiled faintly. "No. You are human. And that is more powerful than any machine. More valuable than any fortune." As Mara stirred, blinking sleepily at her father, Eli felt a surge of relief unlike any he had ever known. He had faced fear, exhaustion, and uncertainty. And he had triumphed not through technology, but through heart, determination, and quick thinking. For Eli, the night's trials had a lesson. Machines might fail, systems might collapse, but humans, when united and determined, could accomplish anything. And in that moment, he realized that humanity itself was the greatest technology of all. Outside, the city's lights reflected off wet streets, the storm passing quietly into morning. Inside, a single father held his daughter's hand. A billionaire widow watched in quiet admiration, and the hospital staff moved with renewed confidence. Human ingenuity had triumphed. The night had tested them, and they had passed. Eli sat back in the corner, finally allowing himself to rest, though his mind buzzed with the events of the past hours. Machines had failed, alarms had blared, and the chaos had seemed endless. Yet here they were, alive, safe, and stronger for the struggle. Celine leaned close, whispering, "Remember this feeling. You are capable of more than you know." Eli glanced at her, exhaustion and gratitude warring in his eyes. I'll remember, he said. And as he watched Mara sleep, safe and sound, Eli realized that humans could endure anything, innovate through any crisis, and triumph when all odds seemed against them. The ER had been a battlefield, but the victory belonged to humanity, to courage, to love, to the unbreakable spirit that machines could never replicate. By midday, the ER had returned to a semblance of normalcy. The monitors beeped steadily. The robotic assistants moved efficiently once more, and the exhausted staff had begun taking short breaks. Mara slept peacefully on her medbed, a faint smile on her lips, oblivious to the chaos that had surrounded her just hours earlier. Eli, still sitting close by, rubbed his eyes and tried to catch the brief moments of rest he had missed in the storm of the night. Celine Hart watched him carefully. Her presence was quiet but deliberate, her eyes scanning the room as if evaluating everything. "You did well, Eli," she said softly. "More than well. You handled yourself better than I expected." Eli shook his head, exhausted but uncomfortable with praise. "I was just doing what I had to do," he muttered. "I didn't really think about anything else." Celine smiled faintly, but her expression grew serious. "That is exactly why I'm talking to you now. The system failure. It wasn't an accident. And the people behind it are still active." Eli frowned. "What do you mean? Who would do this?" Celine stood, her posture straight and commanding. "Corporate rivals. People who want to discredit my work and my initiatives in medical technology. They've been trying to show that humans are obsolete, that machines can do everything better. Tonight's crisis was a test, a way to prove that if humans fail, the systems fail. But you and those who helped you proved them wrong." Eli blinked. "They're trying to sabotage the hospital? Why? And why, tell me?" "Because you understand what it means to fight when the odds are against you. You acted with courage, ingenuity, and care. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have let the machines make the decisions. You didn't. You saved lives." Eli's chest tightened. He wanted to be proud, but the weight of her words pressed on him. The idea that someone could manipulate life and death for corporate gain was terrifying. He had seen Mara's fear, her helplessness, and he couldn't imagine that happening on a larger scale. Celine continued, her voice calm but urgent. "They will try again. But this time, they won't limit themselves to the hospital. They are ambitious and dangerous. And they underestimate humans like you." Eli swallowed hard. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to join me," she said simply. "Not as an employee. Not as a figurehead. Not for money. I want someone who understands human strength and human responsibility. Someone who knows what it means to protect life. You have that. You've proven it tonight." Eli shook his head, conflicted. He was a single father. He had responsibilities, bills, school, and Mara's well-being. He was not a corporate hero, nor did he want to be one. Yet the thought of leaving this threat unchecked, of people manipulating life and machines to hurt the innocent, stirred a fire in him he didn't know existed. I don't know if I can," he admitted. "I'm just a dad. I can barely keep things together as it is." Celine stepped closer. "Being a dad doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. You've fought and survived challenges that most would never face. That strength, that determination. It's exactly what the world needs." Eli looked down at Mara, asleep and safe. He thought about what she had just endured, the pain, the fear, the helplessness. He couldn't imagine letting anyone harm her or anyone else because of greed or arrogance. And yet, the thought of joining Celine's fight felt like stepping into a world far bigger than he was ready for. "I need time," he said finally, voice low but firm. "I need to think about this. I need to make sure I can protect her first." Celine nodded. "I understand. But no, this time may be a luxury we don't have. They are planning their next move, even as we speak." Eli's mind raced. Machines had failed tonight, and he had learned just how fragile human systems could be if left to technology alone. But he had also learned the power of human determination, of ingenuity, and of courage under pressure. If Celine was right, and the threat was real, then humans like him were the only ones who could stand against it. Later, as Mara slept more peacefully, Eli walked through the hospital corridors, Celine following quietly. The place that had seemed like a battlefield during the night now felt almost normal. Yet the memory of alarms, frozen robots, and struggling monitors lingered like a shadow. "We need to be careful," Celine said softly. "They are watching. They may try to manipulate events to test us further. But human intuition, creativity, and resilience, that is their weakness. They cannot predict what you will do." Eli nodded slowly, absorbing her words. He realized that Celine's world, filled with wealth and technology, was not immune to danger. In fact, it was precisely the kind of environment where human courage could make a difference if only someone was willing to step up. Over the next hours, they worked together, reviewing data from the hospital's systems. Celine explained the vulnerabilities she had discovered: corrupted code embedded in the AI, attempts to trigger failures remotely, and deliberate manipulation to discredit her work. Eli listened, learning quickly, asking questions, and offering suggestions based on his own experience in thinking on his feet under pressure. "You're a natural problem solver," Celine remarked, watching him. "You may not realize it, but tonight, you led people through chaos. Most executives with 10 times your resources would have failed." Eli smiled faintly, but there was a tension in his eyes. "I did what I had to do. I don't want to become someone else. Someone who fights for corporate interests." Celine shook her head. "This isn't about corporate interests. This is about protecting life. Human life. And sometimes, the world forces ordinary people to become extraordinary." The more Eli learned, the more he understood the stakes. If they did nothing, the rogue faction could strike again, this time targeting hospitals, critical systems, or even families like his own. But with Celine's resources and his human ingenuity, they could anticipate attacks, counter-sabotage, and protect the innocent. Eli felt a fire ignite inside him. He was tired, exhausted beyond belief, but he also felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. This wasn't just about machines failing or corporate greed. It was about proving the value of human courage, creativity, and resilience in a world that sometimes tried to replace them with cold efficiency. Finally, as the sun began to rise fully over the city, Eli made his decision. "All right," he said, voice firm. "I'll help. But on one condition: Mara comes first. Always. And I need to know I can trust you to keep her safe." Celine smiled faintly, a rare softness breaking through her usual calm. "Always. She is safe with me. And I promise, you will not be alone in this." For the first time in hours, Eli felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The threat was real. The danger was present, but he was not powerless. He had allies, resources, and most importantly, human ingenuity on his side. The lessons of the night, the courage, determination, and quick thinking were tools he could carry into this new fight. As they looked down the hospital corridors, a quiet determination settled between them. The world was dangerous, filled with people who would exploit technology for selfish ends. But humans like Eli and Celine, driven by care, courage, and intelligence, could stand against it. Eli glanced once more at Mara, sleeping peacefully, and felt a profound sense of purpose. She was his motivation, his heart, his reason for standing. And now, with Celine's guidance and resources, he could take that human strength beyond the walls of the hospital. "Let's get started," he said quietly. Celine nodded, and together, they began planning their next steps. It would not be easy. The rogue faction was smart, resourceful, and dangerous. But for the first time, Eli realized that humans were not just survivors. They were fighters, innovators, and guardians of what mattered most. Outside, the city gleamed in the morning light. unaware of the quiet war unfolding within its walls. Inside, a single father, a billionaire widow, and the memory of a night of chaos became the beginning of something greater. A fight to prove that human courage and ingenuity could triumph over greed, corruption, and even the coldest machines. And Eli knew, in the deepest part of his heart, that he would fight, not for power, not for wealth, but for life, for love, and for the undeniable strength of humanity itself. The city outside glimmered under the evening lights, but inside the hospital, tension hung in the air. Eli Vance stood at the center of the command room, flanked by Celine Hart and a small team of trusted staff. The rogue faction that had sabotaged the hospital's systems weeks ago was preparing their next attack. And Eli knew this was the moment to prove once more that humans could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast machines and greed. Celine tapped a tablet, pulling up schematics of the hospital's AI systems. "They've embedded multiple triggers this time," she explained. "If we aren't careful, they can cause failures in critical departments, surgery, ICU, even life support units. We need to act fast, and we need to act smart." Eli clenched his fists. His exhaustion was still heavy on his shoulders, but his determination burned brighter than ever. "Then, let's stop them. No machines, no shortcuts. Humans do this." Celine smiled faintly. "Exactly. Humans do this." The team dispersed, each person assigned to a specific area. Eli moved toward the ICU, where Mara's care team was monitoring other critical patients. The hallways were eerily quiet. The usual hum of AI assistants, subdued as if they sensed the tension. "Stay calm," Eli muttered to himself, though his heart pounded. "We've done this before. We can do it again." At the ICU, the monitors flickered, signaling the rogue faction's first attempt to trigger a malfunction. Eli and the nurses jumped into action, manually checking each machine, recalibrating ventilators, and securing backup systems. Every beep of a monitor restored filled him with reassurance. "This is insane," one nurse whispered, panic in her eyes. "How could anyone want to do this?" Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "Because some people don't care about life, but we do. And that's why they'll fail." Hours passed like minutes. Every threat from the rogue faction required quick thinking, improvisation, and courage. Eli's leadership inspired the team. He suggested using simple tools to reroute power manually, creating temporary communication links when intercoms failed, and even developing hand signals for coordination when electronic communication was disrupted. Each human solution solved problems that machines could not anticipate. Celine worked alongside him, her calm, strategic mind complementing his instinctive problem-solving. She guided him through advanced overrides, while he suggested unconventional methods that leveraged human intuition. The synergy was remarkable. Where she was precise, he was creative. Where he was bold, she was cautious. Together, they formed a force the rogue faction could never predict. Midway through the night, a particularly dangerous attempt struck the pediatric ward. The AI controlling the oxygen regulators began to fail. Eli rushed in, quickly assessing the situation. "Okay," he said, voice steady. "We don't panic. We do it the old-fashioned way." He instructed nurses to manually check oxygen levels, while he adjusted the backup regulators. Sweat ran down his face, exhaustion weighing on him. But he moved with a calm focus that inspired everyone around him. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, the monitors stabilized. The danger passed. Celine watched him closely. "Eli," she said softly, "do you realize what you're doing? You're saving lives with nothing but human skill and courage. That's extraordinary." Eli shook his head. "I'm just doing what needs to be done. Anybody could do it if they had to." "No," she replied firmly. "Most people would freeze. Most would let the machines handle it. But you've proven that humans matter. That ingenuity, courage, and heart are stronger than any machine." As the night wore on, the rogue faction became more desperate, trying to find new ways to disrupt the hospital. Eli and Celine anticipated their moves, improvising defenses and rerouting systems. It became a game of intellect, strategy, and human intuition versus cold, calculated sabotage. Finally, Eli had an idea. Using the hospital's network, he created a human-powered override that would block any attempt to manipulate the AI remotely. He called it Project Heart, a system designed not just for machines but for humans to take control in moments of crisis. Celine helped him implement it, and together, they tested it in every department. The rogue faction struck again, attempting to override the ICU systems. Alarms blared, lights flashed. But this time, Project Heart worked perfectly. The manual overrides and human coordination neutralized every threat. Machines stabilized, patients remained safe, and the hospital's systems held firm against sabotage. Eli leaned against a wall, breathing heavily. His body ached, his mind was exhausted, but a sense of triumph surged through him. Humans had prevailed, not because of money, not because of technology, but because of courage, creativity, and determination. Celine approached, her expression a mixture of pride and admiration. "You've done it, Eli. You've shown the world that humans are indispensable." Eli smiled faintly. "We've done it. Everyone helped. But, yeah, humans do matter." In the quiet aftermath, Eli returned to Mara's room. She was awake now, blinking sleepily, and the sight of her safe, smiling face made every moment of fear and exhaustion worth it. "Daddy," she whispered, voice soft but clear. "Are we okay?" Eli sat beside her, brushing her hair back. Mara smiled weakly. "I knew you'd protect me." Eli hugged her gently. "Always. That's what dads do." Celine watched from the doorway, her presence quiet but warm. She had fought many battles in her life, but the courage she had witnessed in Eli, ordinary, human, unstoppable, reminded her why she fought for humanity. She stepped into the room, smiling softly. "You two did amazing tonight," she said quietly. "And Eli, you reminded me why humans matter. Not machines. Not money. Humans." Eli looked at her, a mix of gratitude and exhaustion in his eyes. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you guiding me." Celine shook her head. "No. You could have. You just needed someone to show you that you could." The night's trials had left scars, both physical and emotional, but they had also forged bonds. Eli had proven his courage not just to himself, but to everyone around him. He had faced exhaustion, fear, and overwhelming odds, and triumphed. Outside, the city lights reflected off the wet streets from the earlier storm, calm and silent. Inside, life returned to the hospital with a renewed sense of human capability. Nurses and doctors moved with confidence, patients were stable, and the memory of the night's chaos became a lesson in resilience, ingenuity, and courage. Celine approached Eli one last time before leaving the hospital. "You have something rare," she said softly, "the kind of human strength that changes the world, and I hope you never forget it." Eli nodded, exhausted but inspired. "I won't. I'll fight for what matters. For Mara, for people like her, and for humanity." Celine smiled. "Good. That is why I wanted to meet you. That is why I whispered to you that night, because I knew you could do it." Eli looked at Mara, who yawned and curled up under her blanket, safe and smiling. He felt a profound sense of peace. The rogue faction might exist, challenges might come again, but humans had shown tonight that no machine, no scheme, no obstacle could overcome courage, creativity, and love. He thought about the night, about Celine, about every hand that had helped, every mind that had worked, and every heartbeat that had refused to surrender. Humanity had triumphed, and in that triumph, Eli realized something he had never truly understood before. Humans were unstoppable when they acted together, when they trusted themselves, and when they refused to let fear control them. The night's storm had passed, leaving the city bright and alive. Inside, a single father held his daughter's hand. A billionaire widow smiled in admiration, and the hospital staff moved confidently through the wards, inspired by the strength of one ordinary man. In the quiet glow of dawn, Eli whispered to Mara, "Humans can do anything, kiddo, and tonight, we proved it." Mara smiled, eyes wide and bright. "Humans are the best," she said softly. Eli laughed gently, the sound filled with relief, joy, and pride. "Yes, kiddo, humans are the best," and as they looked toward the future, they knew this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, storms would rage, but with courage, ingenuity, and love, humanity would always triumph. The world might rely on machines, money, or power. But Eli knew as he held Mara close and saw Celine standing nearby that the heart of humanity was unstoppable. Humans had won, and this victory was theirs, forever.